Hey everyone, welcome back to Faro Freedom Channel. I'm Dante Farigno, and I've been on a carnivore diet now known as the Lion Diet for the past 4+ years, and it has changed things in my life like I never thought it would change things. And one of the things I've been doing lately is more and more of these carnivore conversations because I realize the importance of people sharing their stories, because the more people who are letting the world know how these things are changing your life, how going on an all meat diet can change your life. It has been truly mind blowing to a lot of people to know that so many people are doing so well. It was mind blowing to me just to hear that Jordan Peterson was doing an all beef diet back when I found out about it, which led me on that path. If he hadn't shared his story, I may not be alive today. I can tell you that. And I'm betting there's a lot of you out there who could say the same thing. Today, we're going to have a guest from Ontario, Canada. Her name is Cathy Dickson. She's 67 years old, and she's been struggling with her weight her whole life. She's tried every kind of diet out there, but this is the first time in her life she's found something that's sustainable, that has not only helped her keep the weight off, but has eliminated a lot of other things. And I want to be able to bring more people on to share their stories. If you have a carnivore story that you would like to share, I would love it if you would go to my website, farignofreedom.com, and fill out the form at the little section on the website that says your story, so that you can share your story with me, and then we can get together and do a carnivore conversation just like I'm doing here. Because if you have a story to tell and you're not sharing it, then somebody is missing the opportunity to be awakened by your story. So please, if you really want to be able to help save people from the problems that are going on from the food system that we live in, from the food and drug system we live in that's exacerbated by the government, please come on and share your story. Anyway, let's go on and get into the video with Cathy Dickson. As our skin is the largest organ on our body, it's something that we should definitely take care of. And for the last couple of years, I've been using Vintage Tradition products to do just that. I love their tallow soaps. I love their lip balm. I also love their skin balm. And what I love about Vintage Tradition, they only use suet, so it's really pure stuff. And they used cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. Now, I prefer the unscented versions myself. However, my wife really loves the Pretty Girly Tallow Balm. They have a variety of items to choose from, so you can find one that fits your preference. And you can know that you're not only using some of the healthiest stuff that you could put on your skin, because tallow nourishes your skin. If you wouldn't eat it, I wouldn't put it on your skin. Check them out now at vintagetradition.com, and be sure to use my discount code Dante, Dante, to save 10% on your order. Now back to the video. So, Cathy, it was nice meeting you at the Healing Humanity group, and you had mentioned that you'd like to share your story of a carnivore conversation. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you found the carnivore diet?
Oh, it's been a journey. That's all I can say, Dante. It's been a journey. So I actually was doing a workplace challenge. So I was managing two group homes, and I challenged them to any kind of health challenge, whatever you want to do. Now, most of the staff needed to lose weight, and I was leading this challenge. So if I'm leading, I have to do it. But I've done every diet that there is in the book. So I thought, well, what will I do? I decided on Atkins induction because I'd never done that because that's really dumb. Like they eat fat and everything. Like I thought that was not going to work. So I did that and it worked. And I lost well over 100 pounds at that point. And yeah, our team won. I was on one of the teams. And then that was in January 1st, 2006 that I started that.
How funny. That's
Then
almost
life
the
moved.
same time I started Atkins diet.
Oh, funny. It was, I guess, more popular in those days. And then as time moved on, I was watching, I don't even know where I went. 2015, I got a divorce. And when I got a divorce, I got into keto products because I heard about keto by then and all these low carb keto products. And I thought, well, all I have to do is keep my carb count down below 25, which is what I was doing. So I bought all these products. And there's only like 2 grams of carbs in this bar. And I would wind up eating the whole box, right? Because that would fit, that's 40 bars,
Wow.
right?
In one
I could eat
sitting?
it all. Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
yeah. I can eat. Trust me, I can eat. And then Yeah, so I started to gain back weight. Although I didn't gain back all of that, not anywhere near all of that. And then January 1st, 2020, there was this thing going around the world. People were starting to show up on TV and they were looking sick. And I looked at the intensive cares and I thought, interesting. These guys are all kind of overweight, and the ones that are in intensive care. And they had four comorbidities. And I thought, Cathy, you got to do something because you're starting to creep up there. You got to go down. And so I went. Um, and in the meantime, I had contacted, way back, I contacted Jimmy Moore when I started gaining weight. And I asked him, I said, are there some people that can eat, that just eat zero carbs? Would that be better? Because he was having a problem way back when too. And he never responded. But I thought about it and I thought, well, I know what to do. I'll go back on Atkins induction. So that's what I did. However, I wound up not eating the vegetables half the time. So I'd buy them at the beginning of the week, throw them out at the end of the week. Buy them at the beginning of the week, throw them out at the end of the week. And and then eventually I thought, why am I buying these things? So I stopped buying them. And then I found a lot of influencers online. My first one would have been Dr. Eric Westman because I knew him already from Atkins because he was Atkins was first, and then Dr. Eric Westman. He did some training with Robert Atkins, and then I knew about Dr. Ken Berry because he did all the low carb things for years, so I knew about him. So I watched him, and then somehow just got down the rabbit hole and watched a whole pile of other ones. I've gone into tons of groups, support groups, which I think is really important to have support. Currently, I'm in Healing Humanity, but I've been in Steak and Butter Gang. I've been in Dr. Lisa Wiedemann. I'm in Kelly Hogan's right now. I go in and out of there from time to time. And I took a bunch of training from a lot of people. I'm in Joan Iflin's, the Food Addiction Reset Community. And I don't know if there's any else in there that I've been in, but there's been quite a few. And I find them extremely helpful.
So your primary focus on the whole thing was losing some weight so you could get some of that extra weight off.
That was my focus. Correct. Now, do you want to hear what actually happened?
Well, absolutely. That's what we're here for. I would like to know,
Yeah.
like maybe how old you were when you started, how tall you are, and maybe
Okay,
what your
so
weight was. And
fi- I'm 5'9". My highest weight ever was 289. And when I started Atkins induction, I was 259. And I'm not disclosing my weight today because it's a little bit over, but it's not too badly over. I wore the same size when I was right in normal range, and now I'm right above it, and that bothers me. But but anyway, it's still, over 100 pounds, so we're still not too bad.
so you're down over
So
100 pounds. Okay.
and now going carnivore as opposed to keto or low carb, whatever I was doing before, the healing I've had has been different. Now I lost weight with the other ones and I felt better and I had more energy when I was doing Atkins or keto, but acid reflux. So I've got a huge list here. So the acid reflux, I was taking, I can't remember, was it Nexium or something, but some kind of tablet or something from the doctor, and that is gone. I definitely, I don't need to have naps. At one point, I had to have a nap in the afternoon. It wasn't possible to get through a day. I can move more easily, the energy and all of that. My gums don't bleed. They used to bleed all the time, and they don't bleed. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. One of the major things I had was chronic constipation, and that is completely gone, which is a great relief because I I said this on Dave Max. I traveled with a snake. So a snake is more advanced, let's say, than a plunger. So if you clogged it up and you finally went, I mean, you had to clean that thing out.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was bad. Yeah,
I can relate
it
to
was
that.
bad.
I had bad constipation before too, and I remember Jordan Peterson talking about that gums bleeding thing. That's related to heart disease, and they say that that's supposed to be incurable, but he had a similar
Okay.
experience on carnivore.
Well, I'm going to go on the heart one now then.
Okay.
So I've had a heart murmur, and the heart murmur disappeared. So I used to have to go to the dentist, and well, I still go to the dentist once in a while. But when I went to the dentist, I had to take a prophylaxis of antibiotic because of the gums, because it can go to the heart infection. And I was in the hospital with a heart infection, a valve infection, back in my 20s. Now, I've been heavy like my whole life. I was 212 pounds when I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
So, anyway, the heart murmur has disappeared. It's not there. So, I'm like, wow. So, of course, the simple things, new clothes and so on. I have this thing called hemicrania continua. So, it's a headache on one side all the time. I've had MRIs and whatever. And they say, oh, you just have hemicrania continua. Oh, good. That's what I told you. I said I have a headache on one side of my head all the time. They just say it in Latin and make it sound good. But that is really reduced. And I'm like thrilled with that. Almost gone. Blood pressure, my blood pressure was elevated. My blood sugars were up. Both are normalized. My EGFR, so the kidney function, it went from a 56, which is just a little bit on the low side there, to a 94. So I'm happy about that. My A1C currently is 4.8. My eyesight, I talked to Dr. Lisa Wiedemann about this one because I'm like, oh my goodness, my eyesight's improved from minus 2.75 to minus 1.25. And I used to have a Morton's Neuroma on my foot. So it's like having a ball on your foot and you step and there'd be like electricity shooting through your body. It's like, oh my goodness, like you felt like you couldn't walk at all. And that's gone.
Hmm.
And then this very week, so this is 4 years in on carnivore, actually going into the fifth. I have these nodules in my thyroid, and I went in for an ultrasound. I go once a year just to get them checked. They say, no, they don't look like a problem, whatever. So I went to get them checked, and the one in the parotid gland is gone. And I'm like, well, that's interesting that there was something there. And anyway, they don't need to be followed up. Mind you, I'll still go in 1 year to get them checked, but other than that, that's it. Feel great, energetic, got it together.
So all of those things, my goodness, that's a heck of a turnaround, and especially since you've been living with that obesity so long in your life, you must be experiencing a whole different lifestyle now.
Well, it was 2006 that I really got rid of the real obesity, right? So that's almost 19 years later, but there were some going up and down in between, which kind of leads me to cheat or not cheat.
Okay.
Well, I think part of it, when I was on those keto products, especially the bars, I know what they were called, but anyway, the bars that I ate, I didn't consider it a cheat at that time because it says 2 grams of carbs. I'm like, well, that's okay then, and I can eat it. So I had this impression, as long as it stays under 25 grams, you can eat it. Of course, we know that when it says net carbs, that doesn't mean total carbs. If you look at total carbs, which is what Dr. Westman talks about, it's a whole different story. I think there's 17 or 18 per bar.
Well,
So that's a lot.
yeah.
That's a whole lot.
I remember when I did Atkins back in '06, I was just following the book, and then shortly after, I think it was shortly after he died, that the company started putting out all these products,
That's what they did.
and they were teaching us to look at those labels and follow the numbers as far as carbs and things like that, but they didn't talk about the ingredients too much. And I think that's one of the things that really changed for me when I went lion diet was I started as a result of making a channel and looking into what the different things were about it, as I started looking at the ingredients themselves. And seems like all of those things that are in the health food section, the low carb, keto, and all that, all those boxed items that they make are loaded with tons of ingredients that you don't want to have.
Yes, absolutely. Those ingredients, they what they do, and Joan Ifland would certainly back this up. She wrote a book, you've probably seen it before, Processed Food Addiction. I have it here. And it's those ingredients that we get addicted to, not just the sugar, not just the flour, but the chemicals. So they have scientists that are behind this that are trying to get something that just really tastes super good so that people want to eat more and more and more. They crave it. They've got to have it. The advertisements even say that you can't just eat one.
Yeah.
That's what the advertisement says,
Once you
right?
pop, you can't
So I'm
stop.
like, yeah. And the other thing going on beyond that, because then for a long time, I used some stevia. Even with carnivore, I would use stevia. Well, I'll tell you, I took stevia out just a couple months ago, and it quiets down the food noise. I can't believe it. I'm like, people have been telling me this for years, but I thought it's just a little bit of stevia. It's pretty harmless, isn't it? It's just a little bit of stevia.
Right.
And so I took it out, and it really quiets down the food noise because I'm not craving the sweet stuff. And I remember Kelly Hogan said she stopped whatever sweeteners and it took her 3 days to get past it. And then she was fine. And I'm like, that's about what it took, maybe 3 days without it. And then I'm like, not so bad.
What about, have you tried, I don't, I see, I've heard people talk about allulose being a good option for that. And my first impression was kind of what you're talking about here is that I don't really need the sweet stuff. Even when I want to try carnivore ice cream, I'm like, just a little salt and cream is fine with me. But I hear a lot of people use that. Is that something you've tried?
Well, I'm a coach with Ben Dickman, right? And he really talks about allulose because it sort of acts on the GLP-1 receptors. And I'm like, okay. So I went and got some of that. And I like Maria Emmerich's. I've been in her group too. Maria Emmerich's egg white bread, just because you can have it and use it as a bun, and it really has not much in it, but they don't brown. But if you put a little bit of allulose in there, it does brown. Now, allulose does have a little bit of carbs. It is a sugar, and so I wouldn't use very much of it. But I figure if I'm making a whole batch, I do put a little bit in, maybe I don't know, a teaspoon in the whole batch, which would be 2 loaves of bread.
So you
So,
make like a
and you
carnivore
can't
kind of
taste it.
bread? Is that what you're saying? It's a carnivore bread?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's more than one kind. There's Anita, so ketogenic woman. She's got some recipes out there too. So does Maria Emmerich for carnivore breads. And there's Chris Cooking Nashville has some. There's a lot of them out there. So what it is, it's just egg whites with egg white powder. You blend them together, whip them up, the egg whites till they're stiff. And I put cinnamon in as well because I happen to like that. And now I put that little bit of allulose in, maybe a little bit of cream of tartar to hold it, which isn't necessary, but you could. And then you cook it. So I like to cook it in the oven with, obviously in the oven, with just the little round ones. So they look like buns as opposed to looking like a loaf of bread. But you could make it a loaf of bread, which I've done too. And then you can do meat breads, things like that if you want to do that. I usually don't bother, but I have tried them. So you make them maybe out of chicken breast mixed with ground beef, and it's not a meatloaf. It has lots of eggs in it. So you cook up the ground beef, the ground chicken together, just boil it, strain it. You're not going to fry it, you're going to boil it. Strain it, cool it down, whip it in the blender, throw in a pile of eggs. I can't remember the ratios right now. You can look any one of those channels and you'll find them, these recipes. And put cinnamon. I put tons of cinnamon, maybe some salt in there a bit, and you bake it. And it's a loaf of bread. Or I think there's baking powder in it.
So how often do you do these extra? See, when it comes to these type of
I don't.
ingredients and stuff for carnivore, I've stayed away from that. I'm just meat, water, and
Yeah.
salt kind of guy myself. But
I know. I know. I've thought of that, Dante. I thought of doing lion because mostly I eat beef. Like for lunch, whatever. I sometimes that's all I ate in the day. But um, the egg white bread, I've got some egg white in the fridge, so I'll probably make that up. It's nice to have on hand. I don't make it a lot, sometimes not for months at a time. But if I happen to want a bun, it works. Although I'm quite happy not to have it. The one thing I do have, though, that is definitely not carnivore is, can you guess?
Let's see. Well, my wife's big trapping is ice cream, so I don't know if that's what you're
Oh,
referring to.
ice cream. Ice cream you can make carnivore pretty easy.
Yeah. I don't even do well with
Yeah.
that because the
No,
cream
it's
upsets my stomach, but
the cream. I can't do dairy. That's one thing. It will trip me up every time I do dairy. Yeah, but it's decaf coffee. I make very weak decaf coffee and I do enjoy it. And I've talked to myself about that. It's like, do you want to let that go? I listened to Dr. Chafee and he says it's that last 5% you got to let go of and you're going to feel so it makes, 99% different or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, do I want to let it go? There's no sweetener of any kind in there. There's no cream in there. Do I want to? So I haven't come to the conclusion yet. I've done a day or two here or there, but that's about it.
I understand it's a struggle for people to get to that point. I mean, I started at that point only because I was so desperate. And but now with my wife starting on a carnivore diet, it's been like, well, she's not ready to get rid of her coffee, and I'm just encouraging her to stick with what she's doing, which is eating all meat. And it's caused me to kind of start having some coffee occasionally because I make all the coffee for her. And then I introduced her to bulletproof coffee so that she could have something that she would enjoy that I understand is not too bad for people. But yeah, I still tend to lean more toward Chafee's recommendation that the cleaner you can go, the better you're going to feel. That extra
Better.
5% does make a big difference. And I'm sure it's affected me because over the past year, when I was working at restaurants and things and incorporating some stuff that I didn't used to eat, it did make a difference. It made it harder to keep the weight off. And
Yeah.
also little things that like brain fog sometimes can come back when you have mixed in, especially when it comes to things with plant material, because coffee has plant toxins in it, and those can affect
Uh,
your
That's the thing.
your gut and your brain. So it is a tough thing. And so what's your basic diet like each day?
I took, I have bacon and boiled eggs that I take to work. So I had two boiled eggs. I had a lot of bacon today. I must have had 8 slices this morning at work. And then on the way home today, which I don't normally do, but I knew it was going to be later. Usually I eat my dinner around 3 o'clock, and I thought I don't have time for dinner at 3 o'clock today. So I just went to McDonald's and I got myself 8 of the small burger patties, not the quarter pounders, the little ones. So that was my dinner. So it was early. And I do have about 4 ounces of beef from last night left over that I didn't eat that's still in the fridge. So if I want it later, I'll just heat that up. It's ground beef. So that's my favorite. My favorite would be the eggs and bacon at breakfast or lunch, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whenever. Then I get home, so about 3, and then 3:30 maybe. And then I make ground beef, just fry it in a frying pan. I take a pound and just fry it up. That's my dinner. Boring, eh?
Well,
I like it.
it may be boring, but after you talked about all those things that you were able to clear up since you've been able to do this, let's see, you said Morton's neuroma was healed, eyesight was improved, heart murmur disappeared. Let's see, your blood pressure normalized. You didn't talk about your blood pressure here. What was your blood pressure like before?
It was in the 180s over 115, 180 something over 115. It was very high. And then I went on blood pressure medication. Now, I'm not on blood pressure medication right now and my blood pressure is 134 last I saw over 84, which is okay. Dr. Berry says 140 over 90 is okay. It doesn't have to be way down there. I know some other ones, Dr. Boss thinks it should be much lower, and that's okay. I'm happy with 140 over 90. Anything that's there or under, that's okay for me, I think.
Yeah, I had a physician tell
So,
me the same thing when I came off of my blood pressure initially. Is that he said if it's under 140, just you don't have to take it. But he took me off the medicine, and so I still had some left because I told him I had already quit 30 days into doing the carnivore diet
yes,
because my blood pressure was getting too low. I started to feel like I needed to rest some because it was bringing my blood pressure
yeah.
down.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because when I first went on Atkins induction the first time, I didn't know any of this. I didn't have anybody to kind of lead me. All I had was an Atkins book, and he didn't talk about this. So I was on blood pressure medication, and it did get too low. And I passed out like big time. I smashed my head, just bashed out. An ambulance got called, took me to the hospital because I had that heart infection and a little bit of other confusion as to what's happening back in my 20s. So I went to the hospital, and that's what it was. My heart was fine. It's just my blood pressure was too low.
So you were just
So
still
that's a
taking your
real,
medicine like normal, but
I
not really
was,
thinking about it. Okay.
right, because I didn't know, you know? And I think that's a real warning for anybody that's on blood pressure medication or anything that your diet may affect the medication, which is pretty much any medication, that you really need to have that monitored or monitor it yourself or something because it can be extremely dangerous. If you're on insulin or a blood pressure med or anything like that. So it's definitely a warning for people,
So
I
you're
would say.
67 now. Are you still taking any medications?
No, no, I don't need medication. I don't want any medication ever,
Yeah, I can understand
if I can
nobody
help
wants
it.
to have any medication, but so many people, by the time they hit my age, even I was on several medications when I was 48, and I was already
Yep.
starting to fall into that lifestyle of I've got to see my doctor every 3 months or 4 months so I can get my drugs refilled. It was like I got to get permission to stay alive from my doctor every few months.
Yeah.
And when
I
I
live
came
in a,
off of them, it was like, oh my goodness, I don't have to go back. I don't have to make an appointment to go see my doctor again. How
I
was it for
know.
you when you found that out?
Well, I don't go to the doctor any more than I have to, that's for sure. I'd have to be pretty sick to go, and I don't tend to get sick, so that's pretty good. I live in a seniors apartment here, and all my neighbors, of course, are, older. They all take medication. They also all eat junk food. So if we have a gathering, sure enough, they're going to be having whatever. Except one time, I remember I was having a dinner with them and we're all sitting around. It was some special event. We don't normally have dinners, we make our own meals, but it was a special event. And here they're serving at the table, and I chose the meat, and they just might ask me why I'm not eating vegetables. And that's no problem. I just say, well, I don't eat vegetables. You don't eat vegetables? No, I feel better when I don't because if I eat vegetables, my blood pressure goes up and my blood sugar. So I just don't eat them. And then dessert came around, and the lady comes to me first. There's 8 people at the table. She comes to me first. She said, "Would you like some of this or this?" And I said, "Well, neither one, thank you." Then she goes to the next person and asked her, and she said, "Oh, no, thank you." And everybody at the table said, "No, thank you." I guarantee if I was not at that table, they all would have said yes.
Yeah, well, it's part of our interaction with people is eating junk
Yeah.
food for some reason. Like everything that we do together now revolves around eating stuff that's bad for us. It's why it's so nice to have some of these meetups.
But it's been like that throughout history in that it was a part of socializing. We would eat our meals together, we would
Mhm.
share together, you know. And today, the food that's out there, I've been in stores. I don't shop in stores myself. I have things delivered, but they're not food.
Yeah.
So, a couple hundred years ago, you got together, you had a feast with the village or whatever, but it was all real food. Sugar was really hard to come by at one point. It was sold at an apothecary, a drugstore, really up until the mid 1880s for the most part. It's
Hmm.
so highly addictive, but it was rare. It wasn't something you could just go to the store and buy pounds and pounds of sugar and add it to everything. It was a rare thing depending where you lived in the world. So people they'd have their gatherings, they'd make these beautiful meals, but it was made from real food. And that's where things kind of got changed. We know the seeds have all been changed for the plants. And we've got all of the pesticides and herbicides, the glyphosates and everything that's going on the ground. Even if you buy stuff that's organic, it's not organic. You're fooling yourself. You're paying money because that water that's underneath in the water table is all polluted from the glyphosates and the other toxins that are around it from the farmers' fields around it, even if your field is perfect. I mean, you can do your best, but it's still not perfect. The best you can do is ruminants because they have that four-chamber stomach and they can process a lot of the chemicals and the different things that are there. Is there any that's coming through? I suppose there might be, but it's going to be such a trace. It's just nothing like eating other animals that have only one stomach, or for eating plants, of course, that are toxins themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And ruminants, like so for people who might not be familiar, ruminant animals, they're the animals that chew the cud and have the hooves, and it's going to be cows and lamb and things like that. But yeah, that's what lion diet's all about, and that's one of the reasons that I stick with it, because of the healing that I got from it. Now, occasionally I have eggs, and I try to avoid bacon. I don't really get a whole lot of bacon, but I do make it for my kids and my wife now that I'm getting them to eat more regular food, and that's what's such a blessing, as I'm seeing my family come on board with it. But you live alone?
I have an interesting situation. So I live alone. I am married, but my husband lives in another city. We got married during COVID and we just kept it that way. He has a house 3 hours away. I'm down here. So either he comes down here or I go up there. Otherwise, we're just in our own places. And I talk to him every day, and that's about it.
What does he think about this diet?
Well, he pretty much eats that. So on his profile, on his dating profile, I found him on, oh, I don't know, Christian Mingle or something like that. He says he's a meatitarian, he called himself a meatitarian. He'd never heard of the term carnivore. So he eats almost almost exclusively meat, but he'll add a little bit of vegetable, and he's a big dessert person. So he makes desserts with sweeteners himself, but if he goes out somewhere and they're offering dessert, he's right there at the table
Hmm.
because he loves desserts. But I can understand that.
Yeah,
I
well,
just
they're
avoid them.
addictive, like you said. The food
They
is
are.
designed to be addictive, and it really went crazy when back in the late '80s, I think it was, when R.J. Reynolds and the cigarette
It
companies
was
bought
in
out.
the 80s. That's right. They bought out General Foods and a number of other ones, Kraft, and then it doesn't just stop there. Then it goes from there, and they purchase the diet companies. And I'm like, you bought South Beach, you bought these diet companies. Well, they've got all their scientists, like I said, they're trying to make their food addictive. So these are neurochemists, really. They're looking at our neurology and they're figuring out how can we get that person to want more and more of this stuff. So they used it first with tobacco. They used the same strategies that they used for selling tobacco, get them when they're really young, get them addicted when they're young. We used to have toy cigarettes that we smoked when we were a kid.
I
They were
remember.
made from candy. Yeah. And then you want to advertise it everywhere. You might want to make the product readily available that you can pick it up pretty much anywhere, which you can. You could do it with cigarettes, and then you could do it with sugars, and then even diet foods. And I thought, wow, this is like an onslaught against us. And then you've got all the people that are living in food deserts or are just unaware of what they're consuming or how it might affect their body. But it affects our body big time, as we know. It affects our mind through the gut-brain axis. Everything we eat affects our mind. So my job is teaching in addictions at a college. And if you're taking in a substance, any kind of substance, whether it's cocaine or it's heroin or whatever it is, it affects your brain. So do these chemicals that we're consuming. So does the sugar. The proof is in a kid's birthday party. Give them sugar and see what happens. They're going to go crazy, right? They go hyper. Now, it doesn't last for a long time, that part, but it does last for a long time because there is damage to every cell in our body from that sugar and that flour, so that we are slowly killing ourselves by consuming the sugars and the flours and the processed foods. And it's not worth it.
So
It's
you said you
just a
tried.
slow, painful suicide.
Yes, it is. I feel the same way about all the foods. When I look in the stores and I see the cereal aisle, especially, it just breaks my heart because I know that kids and adults are scarfing that stuff down like crazy because everything on the box says it's heart healthy, it can lower your cholesterol, all these things, these false claims that they make. And I don't know how they can be allowed to get away with it, to be honest with you, because that's what drives me nuts. Is it's to me it's false advertising, it's straight up lying, and
It
then
is.
the addictive part of the materials that they use in the food just makes it sinister comparatively
Yeah.
to just being
And
false
just look
advertising.
at all the cartoon characters that they have on there, or a little prize inside the box, or you've got a coupon to go here or there, some other junk food place. And I'm like, wow, that is horrible. You're selling this stuff that they call breakfast. I don't even know what they're all called nowadays. I know of Lucky Charms. I don't know if that still exists, but it's candy. It's candy, straight up candy. And they're marketing it. The mothers are tired, or the fathers, they're shopping with this kid, they're tired. They got to get cereal or something for breakfast. They don't want to put up with all the whining and whatever. The kids saying, "I want that, I want that." They see it in the advertisements. They watch cartoons, and these advertisements are coming up. They're advertising to little kids, and they see it on the shelf, and they're like, "I got to have it." And then they get addicted to it. And the parents will continue to buy it because they don't want to put up with the temper tantrums.
But it actually probably exacerbates them because of all the extra sugar and hyperactivity and
It
things like that
does.
too.
It does. I'm sure that it does. But basically that's what they're doing.
So on your
Yeah.
journey, when you started, you said you were 212 pounds, I think it was, when you were even 12 years old.
12. When I was 12, I was 286 at my highest. Yeah.
And you said you tried a bunch of different diets. Did you ever try vegetarian or vegan or anything like that just to see what it would
I
do?
did I did not do vegetarian or vegan. So I definitely did like cabbage soup. I became a lifetime member at Weight Watchers. So I lost a lot that time too. I went there, so I was 12 when I was 212 pounds there, and then around 13, 14, I went to Weight Watchers. I lost a lot of weight. I don't know how much it was, and became a lifetime member. And I thought, oh, good, I've done it now. So now I can eat because I did it. That's what I was thinking when I was like 13, 14, whatever. But apparently it doesn't work like that. You have to stay with it.
Right. Because that's where we get
And
the notion of fad diets from, is from all those type of things, right?
exactly, exactly. And that's why carnivore is not a diet. Carnivore is a lifestyle. It's something that you can live with for life. Now, some people choose to add in a little bit of vegetables at some point or another, and some don't. Some just stay strictly lion forever, whatever they feel best with. Some people, it's to heal their gut for a while, just a period of time. And Judy Cho sometimes recommends that you use it as an elimination diet. And then if you want to try something, add one thing back in at a time, see how it works for you, and go from there. But anyway, my strangest diet that I ever went to, never mind cabbage soup and shakes and these little square things called AIDS, AYDS. They were supposed to suppress your appetite. But my strangest one was jujubes because I saw something. It was a calorie counter, and the calorie counter said that these jujubes have 1 calorie each. I thought, well, 1 calorie each, that's no problem. I will eat 1,000 of them a day, and then that would be okay. I was just using calories. I didn't know anything about nutrition. And so I ate 1,000 jujubes a day. I did that for a month. I gained 50 pounds. It's not even possible to gain 50 pounds in a month. I gained 50 pounds. So I'm like, how does that work? And I wound up in the hospital. So it affected my brain. I just became so anxious, so depressed. I was just like, oh my goodness, I wasn't feeling good at all. No wonder. I had no nutrition that month, only sugar.
Is this part of
But
the reason you got into addiction for, or teaching for addictions and things like that? And tell me a little bit about that. Does your diet come into play in your teaching any?
well, it does come into play because I bring it up. And we do touch on it. We touch on different eating disorders, like anorexia nervosa or anorexia bulimia, and different kinds of things, binge eating. We do talk about that, but we also talk about how the sugars will affect your brain. Now, that's not so much within the course. That's kind of what I add in the course. The students are coming in every single day. Of course, they have no money, but they do have enough money to go to Tim Hortons, and which is a coffee place here, and pick up their morning coffee. And I bet you it's not black for most of them. Maybe some have black. I really don't know. And I bet you it's not decaf. And decaf's the whole story too. But anyway, and then they've got their bagels and their this and their that. And then for lunchtime, go get some pizza or whatever. I'm like, you guys have no idea how this may affect you in your future. They're just like, well, it tastes good. I want it. It tastes good.
Yeah.
It, if you're talking about the Freud and the id or the ego and the superego. So the id basically it says, I want it now. And that's what it's like. But I want it and I want it now. And that's a really infantile behavior, like you would have with a newborn. A newborn's hungry, and what do? They scream because they want it and they want it now. But as you develop more, you can go into the ego. So you've got the id, the ego, then the superego. The ego can wait a little bit and say, well, not right now. Maybe just have it later on, after dinner, tonight. You can have one small piece or something like that. That's the ego. But the superego says, no, thank you. I don't want it. In other words, you've got total control of your frontal lobe. If you're under the influence of a substance, you do not have frontal control of your frontal lobe. That's the decision-making part of your brain because you're getting into the limbic system. You're using the back of your brain, basically, just in our base desires. You're not thinking straight. So when you're under the influence of a substance, including sugar, including processed foods, you're under the influence and you're not thinking straight. And that's why their minds get messed up. That's why they can feel depressed or sad or anxious or brain fog because they're under the influence of a substance. It's serious stuff.
And the food companies today are using that same training just in reverse. They're using it not to help people, but to get them hooked on their product. And what we've done is we've normalized addiction to bad
Yeah.
things that are not good for our bodies and our minds. And it's like a cycle. because the food not only causes you to be addicted to it, but it also causes the pain and excuse me, the pain and the problems that you're having that would cause you to want to eat more of it. It's just
It
creates
is.
perpetuation, doesn't it?
It is. It's a very vicious cycle. And I look at, so where's the blame? I don't think the blame is on the person. Like it's not our fault. This was done to us. And some of it goes from high levels. Corporations, big corporations, like we were talking about before with the tobacco and the processed food companies, but also with the government,
Oh yeah.
um, because they kind of, in Canada, if you're over 65, you get your drugs for free. I'm like, you can keep it. I don't want it. I lived in Africa for a while. I was doing missions there. And when I lived there, I was bored and I wanted to do something. So I thought, I'm going to go get a used book. So I went, got this used book. The used book was called Big Pharma. I read it and my mouth dropped. I'm like, Big Pharma. Big Pharma is what's feeding the government, the industries, all of these processed food companies, all of those diet companies, all of them are connected to Big Pharma.
The
They
entire
are,
lamestream media too.
and the media. Yes. Yep. They're they're controlling basically everything. Even they donate, and the doctors that are been trained, they want to go to medical school because they want to help people, but then they get taught this curriculum that's really been being paid for. Most of their education is being paid for by big pharma. So they're taught in allopathy, which really is, there's a diagnosis, make the diagnosis, give them a drug, give them a drug, give them a drug. That's the answer for everything. Give them a drug. Even when I went in with my head, that headache, the doctor never once mentioned anything about maybe changing the way that you eat. No, he gave me a medication, but I read the label, the pamphlet that comes out with the medication, and it said it could kill you as you read it. And I'm like, and you think I want to take this? No, thank you.
Right.
I don't want it. I'll find something else. I don't want this. Right. And I think that that's really the message for people is there's something beyond medication. There is a lifestyle that will help. I do believe, if you're going lion like yourself, that that's going to help everyone to a degree. Maybe it's not the whole picture for some, but for most people, it's the whole picture. That's all they need.
And what's sad
And
is
there's,
that there's some medications that may actually help some people. Like Gilead came out
oh
with
yeah,
that medication that cured hepatitis C a few years ago. But then you find out
yeah,
that the companies that support them financially basically say, you know what, we're not into the cure business. So if you're going to be making stuff that cures things, then we're not going to be funding you anymore because we need
hmm
something that's going to keep the money rolling in. And chronic illness is a gold mine for pharma. And
that's right.
working together with government is basically like the FDA is supposed to approve all of these things that they come through. And most of it just gets rubber stamped as generally recognized as safe because it's similar to
hmm
something else, but they just keep building and building and building on it so that by the time you started with something that was maybe a good medication, but then they keep changing it and changing it and changing it. Now it doesn't even recognize, it's not even similar to the original medication, but because each time it's been grafted in as generally recognized
Yep,
as safe, you get all kind of crazy stuff in there. And then you also hear about people that work within the bureaucracy. They need to get their funding, they need to keep their departments open, and they get funded by the companies who get these foods and drugs authorized. So there's definitely a big conflict of interest. And anybody who's been studied free market economics realizes that when you have this type of manipulation going on, they're going to manipulate it to their advantage to where they can get
yep,
the government to make sure they're making more money and keep their competition out and so on and so forth. And that's the mess
yep.
we're in now.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, the rubber stamping from the government on the pharmaceuticals, and then the pharmaceuticals that are owning the processed food companies. So they are causing us to get the chronic disease. So we get the chronic disease. Now we need the medicine so that we can fix the chronic disease. And we've got that cycle going for life, unless we break it. And that's how this is going to happen. I do believe there's a transformation coming. And even now, it's been exploding in the past few years. So I've only been in this carnivore scene for what, four, in my fifth year, right? So a little over 4 years. And I see such a change. At first, weren't very many. And every day that I look, there's more and more and more people trying either carnivore or keto, but they're getting off the processed foods. They're getting off of the carbohydrates, the sugars, the flours, and and so it's healing humanity,
Yeah,
right? That's what we're
exactly.
doing
That's what we're
from the
doing.
bottom up.
Well, we got to be on guard because these companies are going to try to find a way to work their way into this market too. There are some companies out there that make products that I like because they don't have all those ingredients in them. You know, like Carnivore Bar, it's just meat, water, and salt inside of their ingredients, unless you get the version that has honey or something like that, and then that might lead you back down that sweet tooth path. And all of the companies make something because they want to be able to. They want to get the people who aren't as purist about it or who aren't trying to do like Dr. Chafee says to get that last 5% out. But that last 5% leaves that door open for these companies to be able to market products to us that can get us on the wrong track. So that's one of the reasons I do like to support the ones who do make a clean product and hopefully keep it to where that's the thing that's being recommended. So
Yeah.
I know you've only got a few minutes left because you've got another
Okay.
appointment coming up. Is there
Oh, yeah.
anything you would like to say as a closing to anybody who is in your situation?
Well, I always say eat meat, love Jesus, be healthy. That's
Wow.
about it. And you can find me on the Kingdom Way online.
The Kingdom Way. How do you spell that?
The Kingdom Way.
I knew it was spelled a little different. The Kingdom Way. Weigh. All right. Spirit, soul, body, health. Health with meat and Jesus. I love it. And you got the
Right.
QR codes there too, so people can probably see those
Well,
as well.
one of them goes to Insulin IQ, I think, and the other one, I'm not sure, to my website or whatever. And that's my alarm saying I've got a call coming. And so I need to depart.
Well, it
And
was a
I
pleasure
wish
having
best
you.
for everyone.
It was a
Yeah.
pleasure
Thank you
having you,
so much,
Cathy.
Dante.
Thanks for coming and
Thanks.
sharing your story. All right, everyone.
All
Thanks
right.
for joining us today. Thanks for letting Cathy come into your life and share her story. We'll see you guys next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
Hey, it's Dante Ferrigno. I just wanted to thank you first of all for watching this video, but I also wanted to tell you about my merch shop. I have a link in the description for a bunch of different items I've put together for you to be able to show your support for the carnivore lifestyle, and every purchase helps me to keep doing what I'm doing here on Ferrigno Freedom.